May I please your ladyship and Gang Hui Min, together with my learned friend Mr. Chua Keng Zhen, appear on behalf of the appellant CMB Bank Berhad. The respondent Bank Malaysia Berhad is represented by my learned friends Miss Natalie Lee and Miss Oiro Ng. My lady, this is the hearing of the appeal against the decision of Federal Court. CMB Bank Berhad now appeals against the conviction on two submissions. The first submission is that the learned judges had erred in deciding that the respondent was a subsequent purchaser. My lady, I will address your ladyship with this submission. The second submission is that the learned judge had erred in deciding that the respondent is not an immediate purchaser and the interest is indefeasible. My learned counsel will address your ladyship on this second submission. Would your ladyship like a brief facts of the case?
Yes.
My lady, the facts of this case are not in dispute. Chin Ting Sen and Chin Chong Lap, hereinafter referred as Chins, were the owner of a piece of land. They then executed a charge which is in favor of Southern Bank Berhad. This bank was then vested in CMB Bank Berhad, hereinafter referred as the appellant. Wong Chi Kiong, hereinafter referred as Wong, then applied to Bank Malaysia Berhad, hereinafter referred as the respondent, for a loan to purchase the land. Wong then created a charge in favor of the respondent. The documents received were then presented for registration by respondent's solicitor. Wong was then registered as the registered proprietor of the said land and respondent was also being registered as the chargee. It was then found that there were two title over the said land and documents provided by Wong were forged. The main dispute in this case were the claim made by appellant and the respondent as chargee over the said land. The decision made by High Court judges were in favor of appellant with the reason that Wong, as the immediate purchaser, had not complied with proper execution of document. The decision made in High Court was then converted by the Court of Appeal and held in favor of the respondent. The appellant then applied for leave and eventually, the Federal Court dismissed appellant's appeal. If your ladyship has no preliminary question, I shall now proceed to my first submission.
Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. My lady, the appellant submitted that the respondent shall not be considered as subsequent purchaser. My lady, with your permission, I refer to Section 5 of National Land Court, where the meaning of purchaser is being defined as a person or body who in good faith and for valuable consideration acquire title or interest in land. My lady, with your permission, I refer to Section 340, Subsection 2, Paragraph B of National Land Court, which states that the title or interest acquired is not indefeasible if such title is obtained by forgery. My lady, with your permission, I would now like to refer to Federal Court case of Kamal Ruzaiman, Omar and others, and Yaakob Hussein and others. Will your ladyship require the brief facts of this case?
No, proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. The principle of indefeasibility was being defined as if the title or interest of the land is being registered in the same name of the immediate purchaser, the immediate purchaser will not be protected against the principle of indefeasibility if the immediate purchaser had met any vitiating elements set out in Section 340, Subsection 2 of National Land Court. The immediate purchaser will require to set aside the title or interest acquired. My lady, I would now like to refer to another Federal Court case of Pekan Nanas Industries Sandian Berhad and Chang Chin Chuan. Does your ladyship requires the brief facts of this case?
No.
Much obliged, my lady. The basic element of good faith was described as an act with the absence of fraud, deceit, or dishonesty. By applying to our current situation, Wong had forged the document of title. Wong cannot be defined as a purchaser as the title of the land is not acquired through good faith. The title acquired by Wong is not indefeasible as the title is obtained by fraud. The respondent cannot be considered as a subsequent purchaser when the interest derived from the immediate purchaser, who is Wong, is not in good faith.
Counsel, you said the respondent cannot be considered as subsequent purchaser when the interest is derived from the immediate purchaser, who is Wong, who obtained the title not in good faith. However, the respondent is innocent also because the respondent was not aware that the title provided by Wong was obtained by fraud. Do you agree?
I can see the force of your ladyship argument, but it is nevertheless my respectful submission that the respondent is not innocent because he should be more careful when dealing with charge to prevent fraud and forgery.
Proceed.
With your permission, my lady, I would now like to summarize and close my argument that Wong is not the immediate purchaser and the respondent is not the subsequent purchaser. Based on the above reason, the appellant humbly pray to allow this appeal with cause. Unless I can be of any further assistance to your ladyship, that concludes my submission. Much obliged, my lady.
May Your Ladyship, as has been indicated by my learned friend Ms. Gandhi, my name is Chua Ting-zhen, and I appeal for the appellant on the second submission. The second submission is that the learned judges have erred in deciding that the respondent is not an immediate purchaser and the interest is indivisible. If your ladyship has no any preliminary question, with permission, I shall proceed with my second submission.
Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. My lady, with your permission, I would now like to review the federal court case of Tan Ying Hong and Tan San San and others. Would your ladyship require a brief back of the case?
No, proceed.
The court in that case overruled the previous decision made in the case of Ana Properties Seniran Berhad versus Bonsom Bunyani. Chief Justice Arifin Zakaria in the case of Tan Ying Hong said that even though Section 340, subsection 3, paragraph A and paragraph B of the National Land Code refer to the census laid out in Section 340, subsection 2 of the National Land Code, they are restricted to subsequent transfer or interest subsequently granted thereof and could not apply to the immediate transferee of any title or interest. He further explained that applying Section 340, Section 340, subsection 2 of the National Land Code, Adana properties gave recognition to the concept of immediate indivisibility, which is contrary to Section 350 of the National Land Code. My lady, with the now let's refer to another federal court case of Kamru Zaman Oman and others, and Yahoo Hussein and others. Would your ladyship with the effect of the case?
No, proceed.
The case further explained the principle of indivisibility in the following terms, which says that if the title is registered in the name of an immediate purchaser, the bona fide of the immediate purchaser will not offer a shield of indivisibility. The title or interest of an immediate purchaser is still liable to be set aside if any of the criteria set up Section 140, Section 2 has been made out. In our current situation, the respondent was not a bona fide purchaser, as the registration of the land bank charge was obtained through forged document. Therefore, the discharge should not be regarded to be acted at the first place, and therefore there was immediate purchase, and the respondent with the second purchaser. The respondent itself would become an immediate purchaser, and its interest was therefore divisible.
Counsel, it is not disputed that the respondent obtained the title or interest from Wong instead of Chings because the lodgement of the memorandum of transfer between Chings and Wong had happened before the respondent became the chargee. Then, in this sense, there is no relationship between the appellant and the respondent, and Wong should be the immediate purchaser while the respondent should be the subsequent purchaser.
Before due respect, my lady, I maintain that because the original discharge was done by Wong in a forged document, and it should exist in the first place, and therefore the respondent could not be the subsequent purchaser.
Proceed.
Your permission, I would now like to summarize and close my argument. The respondent is self an immediate purchaser, and Wong should be considered as one due to the forged document. The respondent is the immediate purchaser, which does not enjoy the shield of divisibility, as the registration of the was obtained through forged document is clearly forbidden under the law. Based on the above reason, the appellants humbly pray to allow this appeal with us. Unless I can be of any further assistance to your ladyship, this concludes my submission. Much, my lady.
May it please your ladyship, my name is Natalie Lee and I represent the respondent together with my learned co-counsel, Ms. Oiroying. My lady, the respondent submits that the ground of appeal put forward by the appellant is devoid of any merits. My lady, on the ground of appeal, the respondent submits that the federal court had not erred in deciding that the respondent is a subsequent purchaser, whose interest is protected under the proviso to Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code. My lady, I will submit the first submission and my learned co-counsel will submit the second submission. If your ladyship has no preliminary questions, I shall proceed to the first submission.
No, proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. My submission is that the chargee falls under the definition of purchaser under the proviso to Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code. With your ladyship's permission, I refer to Section 5 of National Land Code, where purchaser is defined as a person or body who in good faith and for valuable consideration acquires title to or any interest in land. With your ladyship's permission, I refer to Section 205, subsection 1 of the National Land Code, which provides that dealings capable of being effected pertaining to alienated land and interest shall be those stated in parts 14 and 7 to 17, which are the transfers, leases, tenancies, charges, and liens and easements. My lady, with your permission, I refer to the Federal Court case of Malaysia Building Society Berhad and KCSB Consortium Sdn Berhad. Would your ladyship like a brief summary of the facts of the case?
No need. Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. In this case, Chief Justice Arifin Zakaria held that a charge amounts to an interest in land under the National Land Code. With your ladyship permission, I refer to the Federal Court case of Score Options Sdn Berhad and Maxwell Land Development Sdn Berhad. Would your ladyship like a brief summary of the facts of the case?
No need. Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. In this case, Chief Justice Arifin Zakaria laid down as follows. Interest in land which lack of proprietorship are charges, easements, and leases which are registrable. My lady, with your permission, I refer to the Federal Court case of Tan Ying Hong and Tan Sin San and others. Would your ladyship like a brief summary of the facts of the case?
No. Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. Chief Justice Zaki Azmin held in this case that a subsequent purchaser can be a chargy bank which entitled protection under the proviso to Section 340, Subsection 3 of National Land Code, and clearly, a chargy is a purchaser is recognized. By applying to the present appeal case, Wong as an immediate purchaser charged the land to the respondent to obtain loan from financing the purchase of the land. This shows that the respondent has become a chargee, and as a result of the memorandum of charge, the respondent acquires the interest vested in the land. Thus, such executed charge amounts to an interest in land under the National Land Code. Section 5 of the National Land Code has shown that the respondent who in good faith and for valuable consideration is a purchaser, as the respondent acquires the interest in the land by a charged instrument. Since the respondent is a chargee who acquires interest, therefore the respondent status is recognized as a purchaser under the proviso to Section 340 sub 3 of the National Land Code. To be specific, the respondent is a subsequent purchaser when Wong's memorandum of charge is executed. With your ladyship's permission, I would now like to close my arguments that chargee falls under the definition of purchaser under the proviso to Section 340 sub 3 of the National Land Code. My lady, unless your ladyship has any further questions, that concludes my submissions. Much obliged.
May it please your ladyship, as it has been indicated by my learned counsel, Miss Natalie, my name is Eroing and I appear on behalf of the respondent to present the second submission based on the ground of appeal. My lady, I will proceed to my second submission. If your ladyship has no preliminary questions, I shall proceed to the second submission.
Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. My submission is that the respondent is the subsequent purchaser. With your ladyship permission, I refer to the Section 340 of the National Land Code, which provides for the concept of indivisibility of the title or interest. Under Section 340 sub 1, any person whose registration of the land has been affected, including charge, shall have the indivisible title or interest on the land. Section 314 sub 2 sub b provides that the interest or title shall not be indivisible if there was forgery happened during the registration. The title or interest acquired, which subsequently transferred to other person, will be a divisible title or interest unless it can prove that the subsequent purchaser is act in good faith and for valuable consideration under Section 340 sub 3. My lady, with your permission, I would now like to refer to the Federal Court case of Tan Ying Hong and Tan Sin San, which overruled the Federal Court case of Sun Bonyani and Edona Property. Would your ladyship need a summary of the fact of the case?
No need. Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. The Federal Court explained that the proviso under Section 340 sub 3 only applicable to subsection 3 instead of subsection 2 due to the phrase in this subsection in the proviso. Adona Property case has misconstrued this section. My lady, with your permission, I would now like to refer to the subsequent Federal Court case decision in Kamaru Zaman Omar and others, and Yaakob Hussein and others. Will your ladyship need the brief fact of the case?
No. Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. The court held that an immediate purchaser is not entitled to indivisibility title or interest and is still liable by virtue of Section 340 sub 2. However, the subsequent purchaser is entitled to indivisibility title or interest as long as he acts in good faith and for valuable consideration. By applying to our current situation, the sequence of presentation is where firstly, the appellant lodged the discharge of its charge through the Form 60N, followed by the lodgement of the memorandum of transfer from Ching to Wong, and lastly, the respondent lodged and registered its charge. Thus, it clearly shows that the respondent obtained the title of interest from Wong instead of Ching, because the lodgement of the memorandum transfer between Ching and Wong had happened before the respondent became the chargee. There is no relationship between the appellant and respondent, and Wong should be the immediate purchaser while the respondent shall be the subsequent purchaser.
Counsel, you said Wong should be the immediate purchaser while the respondent should be the subsequent purchaser because there is no relationship between the appellant and the respondent. However, the documents provided by Wong were forged. The respondent obtained a title from Wong who was not acting in good faith. Do you agree that the respondent is also responsible for being not careful enough in dealing with charge?
With all due respect, my lady, the respondent is not responsible for being not careful enough in dealing with charge. This is because the respondent applied Messrs. KK Lim and Association for the purpose of the transaction. They had done all they can do, which include making appropriate inquiry, conducting the relevant checks, and made necessary confirmation in the sales and purchase agreement between Ching and Wong. This is confirmed by the trial judge.
Proceed.
Much obliged, my lady. As a subsequent purchaser, the right to obtain an indivisibility title or interest is protected under Section 340, sub 3, as long as the respondent is acting in good faith and for valuable consideration. Thus, the fault issue document of title on the part of Wong is irrelevant. In conclusion, for the reasons stated above, I would like to invite your ladyship to hold that the Federal Court has not erred in deciding that the respondent is a subsequent purchaser whose interest is protected under the provision to Section 340 sub 3 of the National Land Court, and accordingly, the respondent humbly prays to affirm the decision of Federal Court and to dismiss this appeal with cause. My lady, unless with your ladyship has any further question, that conclude my submission. Much obliged.
Now I deliver the judgment. In this case, the main issue that we need to determine is whether a chargee falls within the meaning of purchaser under Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code. If a chargee falls within the meaning of the purchaser and the respondent is considered as a subsequent purchaser, then he will be protected by Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code. The learned counsel for the appellant argued that Wong as a charger only acquired a divisible title which should be set aside according to Section 340, subsection 2b of the National Land Code. The learned counsel for the appellant further submitted that the respondent's charge was registered with forged documents provided by Wong, and therefore the respondent itself would become an immediate purchaser and its interest was divisible. We do not agree with the submission put forward by the appellant learned counsel. The learned counsel for the respondents has pointed out correctly that the respondent obtained the title of interest from Wong instead of Ching because the lodgement of the memorandum of transfer between Ching and Wong had happened before the respondent became the chargee. There is no relationship between the appellant and the respondent, and Wong should be the immediate purchaser, while the respondent should be the subsequent purchaser. The respondent is protected by the proviso of Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code, because the respondent as a chargee became a holder of a subsequent interest in the land. The chargee falls within the meaning of the purchaser under the proviso of Section 340, subsection 3 of the National Land Code. Appeal dismissed.